The Breaking Point. Part 1 of 3 revised. The crystal chandeliers of the Sterling Crown Yacht Club cast golden light across faces that had never known hunger. 200 guests in designer gowns and tailored suits.
Thank you for
Champagne
your
flowing
time. I
like
appreciate
water.
the opportunity.
Laughter
I
that
look
came
forward to
easy when
discussing
your
this
bank
further.
account had 7 zeros.
This is
Amara
outrageous!
Beaumont moved
Look at my
between the
suit!
tables like
Sir,
a
I'm
shadow.
so sorry. Let me help.
Black and white
Help! This is
uniform pressed
ruined! Get
crisp.
out!
White gloves covering her hands. A smile carved into her face that hadn't felt genuine in 11 hours. She was invisible. That was the point. The wealthy didn't see servers. They saw furniture that occasionally refilled their glasses. Furniture that said yes, sir, and no, ma'am, and vanished when no longer needed. Furniture that absorbed their careless words and crueler glances without complaint. Amara had learned this in 8 months of serving Manhattan's elite. Keep your eyes down. Keep your movements smooth. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Do the job. Get the paycheck. Go home. Repeat. But tonight was different. Tonight, beneath the black glove on her left hand, a 5-carat diamond caught fragments of chandelier light. A ring worth more than this entire yacht club. A ring that represented a secret only one other person in this room knew. Her husband was coming. In 30 minutes, Dante Cross would walk through those oak doors. The anonymous donor who had funded this gala. The mysterious benefactor behind tonight's $2.4 million charity event for children's futures. The irony wasn't lost on her. These people sipping $800 wine had no idea the man bankrolling their evening was the same man who controlled half of Manhattan's underworld. The same man who could end careers with a phone call, destroy empires with a whisper. The same man who had held her while she cried the night they met. Amara's hand drifted to the glove, touched the outline of the ring underneath. Just knowing it was there steadied her breathing, reminded her she wasn't alone, not anymore. 28 minutes until Dante arrived. She could survive 28 more minutes. The Sterling Crown Yacht Club occupied 3 floors of prime Manhattan real estate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River. Marble floors so polished you could see your reflection. The kind of place where memberships cost $50,000 just to be considered. Where the waiting list stretched 5 years and money alone couldn't buy entry. You needed the right bloodline, the right connections, the right last name. Amara had none of those things. 26 months ago, she'd had something better. A corner office at Goldman Sachs. A title that commanded respect. Senior financial analyst, fraud detection division, $180,000 a year. The kind of success her grandmother had prayed for when Amara was growing up in a 2-bedroom apartment in Harlem. You're going to be somebody, her grandmother used to say, combing through Amara's hair on Sunday mornings. Not like me, not cleaning other people's houses. You're going to sit in those big offices. Make them see you're just as smart as they are. Smarter. Amara had believed it, worked for it, earned it. Then she discovered that being smart wasn't always enough. Being right could cost you everything. 26 months earlier, Goldman Sachs' 41st floor, 2 a.m. The office was empty except for Amara and the glow of 3 computer monitors. She'd been staring at the same spreadsheet for 4 hours. Numbers that didn't add up. Transactions that appeared legitimate on the surface but bled wrong when you looked closer. Martin Cole, Chief Financial Officer, 20-year veteran of the firm, respected, connected, untouchable, also laundering $120 million through shell companies in the Cayman Islands. The evidence was there, buried beneath layers of paperwork and carefully constructed corporate structures. But it was there, clear as day to someone who knew what to look for. Amara had built her career on knowing what to look for. She documented everything. 543 pages of transactions, bank records, wire transfers, emails that seemed innocent unless you understood the code. She'd cross-referenced every number, verified every connection, built a case so airtight it couldn't be dismissed. She'd taken it to the board of directors. 48 hours later, security escorted her from the building with a cardboard box containing her desk items and a non-disclosure agreement. "We appreciate your concern, Miss Beaumont," the head of HR had said, not meeting her eyes. "However, after thorough investigation, we found no evidence to support your claims. Furthermore, your recent performance reviews indicate issues with judgment and team collaboration. We feel it's best if we part ways." They'd offered her $500,000 to sign the NDA and never speak about Martin Cole again. She'd refused. "Some things aren't for sale," she'd told them. Within a week, every major financial firm in Manhattan had mysteriously decided she wasn't a good fit for their culture. Phone calls went unreturned, interviews got canceled, recruiters stopped responding to her emails. She'd been blacklisted. Wall Street took care of its own, and Amara Beaumont wasn't one of their own. She was a threat, a woman who didn't understand that some truths were better left buried. The money ran out fast. Grandmother's medication cost $4,200 a month. Alzheimer's progression was aggressive. The nurse who came 3 times a week wasn't cheap. Amara's younger brother Jalen was in his junior year at Howard University. Their mother had died, making him promise to finish college. That promise was everything. So Amara Beaumont, former senior analyst at one of the world's most powerful investment banks, started waiting tables. Pride was expensive. She couldn't afford it anymore. She'd been working at the Sterling Crown for 6 months when she first noticed the man who watched her. He came in alone, always the same corner table in the bar section. Never ordered food, just a single glass of whiskey that he barely touched. And he observed her with an intensity that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Not the way most men watched, not with hunger or entitlement, with something else. Curiosity maybe, or recognition. It made her uncomfortable at first, made her think about pepper spray and well-lit parking lots. But he never approached, never spoke, just sat there for 2 hours, left $100 tip on a $15 drink, disappeared before she could thank him. He came back the next night, same routine, same silent observation. And the night after that, by the 7th night, other servers had started noticing. "Girl, that man is obsessed with you," her coworker Jessica whispered during a lull. "You know who he is?" Amara shook her head. "I asked Marcus. He said the guy's name is Dante Cross, comes from old money. Real old, the kind nobody talks about because half of it's not exactly legal." Jessica leaned closer. "Marcus says he's dangerous, like connected dangerous. You should be careful." But Amara couldn't shake the feeling that danger wasn't what she saw in those storm gray eyes. She saw something else, someone who understood what it meant to be on the outside looking in. On the 12th night, he finally spoke. Amara had been refilling his whiskey when his voice cut through the ambient noise. Deep, textured like gravel over water. "Why are you doing this?" Her hand paused over the glass. "Excuse me, is this job?" He gestured at the room at the tables of laughing, wealthy patrons. "You're too skilled for it. The way you move, the way you calculate everything 3 steps ahead. You're wasted here." She should have been offended, should have told him to mind his business. Instead, she heard herself say, "How would you know what I'm skilled at? I've been watching you for 12 nights. I know how to read people. It's kept me alive this long." He finally looked up, met her eyes directly. His were gray, deep gray, the color of Atlantic storms. "You look at these people like you're doing mathematics, calculating their net worth, their secrets, their lies. That's not a server's instinct. That's an analyst's instinct." Amara's pulse quickened. Nobody was supposed to see that. She'd worked hard to become invisible. "You don't know anything about me. I know you're better than this place. I know someone hurt you or scared you or both. And I know you're the kind of person who doesn't stay down when life knocks you over." He pushed the whiskey glass away, hadn't taken a single sip. "I'm Dante Cross." He said it like she should recognize the name. She didn't. "Amara Beaumont." "I know." Of course he did. He'd been watching her for almost 2 weeks. "Can I ask you something, Amara Beaumont?" "You already have. Several things, actually." A ghost of a smile touched his mouth. "Fair. One more then. Are you afraid of me?" The question hung in the air between them. Honest, direct, unexpected. She should have been. Everything about him screamed danger, the scars on his knuckles that didn't come from gym equipment. The way other patrons gave his table a wide berth without seeming to realize they were doing it. The careful stillness of someone who'd done violence and would again without hesitation. But she looked at those gray eyes and saw something else. Recognition. Like he knew what it meant to have power and lose it. To make choices that cost you everything. "No," she said finally. "I'm not afraid of anything anymore." It was true. Fear required having something left to lose. Amara Beaumont had already lost everything that mattered. Her career, her reputation, her sense of self. What else could the world take from her? Dante studied her for a long moment. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite surprise. More like confirmation of a hypothesis he'd been testing. "Good," he said. "Fear makes people weak, makes them easy to control. You're not weak. That's why I kept coming back." He stood, left $500 on the table, started toward the exit. At the door he paused, turned back. I'll be here tomorrow night if you want to talk about why you're really doing this job, if you want to know why I've been watching." He hesitated. "Or if you just want someone to see you as more than a server." Then he was gone. Amara stood there holding a whiskey bottle, heart pounding, not understanding why she was already counting the hours until tomorrow night. Tomorrow night became the night after, and the night after that. They talked. In quiet corners of the yacht club after her shift ended. In 24-hour diners over coffee, neither of them drank. On park benches overlooking the Hudson River as the sun came up and the city woke around them. Dante didn't lie about who he was, what he was. "My family controls shipping routes, real estate financial interests that operate in gray areas," he told her during their fourth conversation. 3 a.m., a diner in Hell's Kitchen, empty except for them and a tired waitress who'd stopped asking if they needed anything. "Some of it's legal, some of it isn't. I don't pretend to be something I'm not." "Why tell me?" Amara asked. "Why not just lie, make up some story about being an import-export or consulting or whatever euphemism wealthy people use?" "Because I'm tired of performing, playing the game, pretending to be civilized when everyone knows the truth anyway." He leaned back. "You already got kicked out of the game for refusing to play. Maybe that's why I find you interesting." She told him about Goldman Sachs, about Martin Cole and the $120 million moving through shell companies, about the board that chose to protect a criminal rather than believe a whistleblower, about being blacklisted and watching her career evaporate because she'd chosen integrity over $500,000 in hush money. "You know what most people would have done," Dante said. His voice was careful, not judging, just observing. "Taken the money, signed the NDA, moved on with $500,000 and a clear conscience because they'd convinced themselves it wasn't their problem. I couldn't do that." "Why not?" Amara thought about her grandmother, about Sunday mornings and braided hair and promises about being somebody, about her mother making Jalen promise to finish college, about the fact that some things mattered more than money. Because if I'd taken that money, I wouldn't be able to look at myself in the mirror. I'd know I was the kind of person who could be bought, who put a price tag on doing the right thing. She met his eyes. "And maybe that makes me stupid or naive or unemployable, but at least I can sleep at night." Dante was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than she'd ever heard it. "You refused $500,000 to keep your dignity. That's the rarest thing in the world. Real integrity. The kind that costs you everything and you choose it anyway. Lot of good it did me. I'm serving drinks to people who wouldn't spit on me if I was on fire. For now, but you're not broken. You're not beaten. You're strategizing, gathering information, waiting for the right moment." He leaned forward. "That's what good analysts do. They're patient. They watch. They wait for the pattern to reveal itself. And what pattern am I waiting for? The one that shows you how to get back up, how to rebuild, how to prove that losing everything didn't break who you are." Amara felt something crack open in her chest, something she'd been keeping locked down tight since the day security escorted her out of Goldman Sachs. "I can help you," Dante said. "Get you back on your feet. Make some calls. Open some doors. There are people who owe me favors." "No." The word came out sharper than she'd intended. "Why not?" "Because I need to know I can do this myself, that I'm not just someone's charity case or pet project or—" She struggled to find the words. "If I let you rescue me, I'll never know if I could have survived on my own, and I need to know that, need to prove it to myself." Most men would have been offended, would have pushed back, insisted that accepting help wasn't weakness. Dante just nodded. "Okay," he said simply. "But let me be clear about something. This isn't pity. This isn't me trying to fix you because I think you're broken. This is me recognizing someone who understands that some principles are non-negotiable, and that's rare enough that I'd like to keep you in my life, in whatever capacity you'll allow." Something shifted between them in that moment, an understanding, an acknowledgement of what they were building, not a rescue, not a transaction, something else entirely. 10 months after they met, a chapel in Tuscany, the priest spoke Italian, asked no questions, accepted the envelope Dante handed him without counting the bills inside. Amara wore a simple white dress she'd bought in a vintage shop in Florence. No veil, no flowers, no guests. Just her and Dante, and promises made in a language neither of them spoke fluently, but both understood perfectly. When the priest asked if she would take this man, Amara looked at Dante Cross, at the scars on his knuckles, at the tattoos crawling up his neck, at the eyes that had seen things she couldn't imagine and done things she didn't want to know about. She thought about the last 10 months, about the way he'd shown up every single night at the yacht club just to make sure she got to her car safely, about the way he'd never once pushed her to accept his help, about the way he'd listened to her talk about Goldman Sachs and fraud detection and her grandmother's Alzheimer's without trying to fix anything. Just listened. About the way he'd looked at her like she was the most interesting person he'd ever met, not because of what she could be or what she used to be, but because of who she was right now in this moment, broken and rebuilding and refusing to quit. Yes, she said, I do. When Dante slipped the ring onto her finger, 5 carats of flawless diamond that probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years, she felt the weight of it. Not just the ring, but what it represented. Someone saw her, really saw her, and chose her anyway. One condition, she said as they left the chapel, the Italian countryside sprawling gold and green around them. I keep working, I keep earning my own way, I keep being myself. Wouldn't have it any other way, amore mio. My love. But wear the ring, even if you hide it under gloves when you're working. Wear it so you know you're not alone. She'd agreed. For 8 months, Amara Beaumont had worn that ring under black gloves while serving people who would never know she was married to one of the most powerful men in New York. It was her secret, her reminder, her proof that she'd survived the worst and found something worth keeping on the other side. The Sterling Crown Yacht Club, 9:15 p.m. present day, 23 minutes until Dante arrived. Amara moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, champagne bottle balanced perfectly, smile fixed in place, eyes scanning the room without seeming to. She'd learned to read people in her years at Goldman Sachs. Body language, micro-expressions, the tells that revealed when someone was lying or hiding something or about to make a move they thought was clever. Tonight those instincts were screaming. Table 7 was trouble, 6 young men, late 20s, designer suits that cost more than most people's cars, voices loud with alcohol and entitlement, the kind of group that expected the world to rearrange itself for their convenience. At the head of the table sat a man who made her instincts spike into the red zone. Caldwell Ashford. She knew the name. Everyone who worked at the Sterling Crown knew that name. Heir to Ashford Maritime Empire. $4.2 billion in shipping real estate offshore investments. The kind of wealth that stretched back generations. The kind of power that crushed people who got in its way. He was handsome in a cruel way, all sharp angles and perfect symmetry, cold blue eyes that swept over people like they were objects to be cataloged and dismissed. 28 years old with the confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no. Amara had served him before, 3 times in the past 6 months. Each time he'd treated her like furniture. Never said please or thank you. Just thrust his empty glass in whatever direction she happened to be standing and expected her to respond. Tonight felt different. Tonight he was talking on his phone, voice just loud enough to carry to nearby tables, performing for an audience. 52 million transferred to the Cayman account, yes. He laughed, cold and sharp. The charity fund. Please, who actually cares about those kids anyway? As long as the tax deduction clears. Amara's analyst brain lit up like a Christmas tree. 52 million, Cayman account, charity fund. Those weren't random words. That was a confession. Casual, arrogant, delivered like a joke because Caldwell Ashford had never faced real accountability for anything in his life. She filed it away, kept moving, professional smile still locked in place. 17 minutes until Dante arrived. She just had to get through 17 more minutes. Amara approached table 7 with her tray of champagne, moving carefully, every step calculated, every gesture precise. Caldwell didn't acknowledge her existence, didn't even glance up from his phone, just thrust his empty glass in her direction like she was a machine programmed to respond to his movements. She'd learned not to take it personally. This was the job. Be invisible, be efficient, be gone. Amara poured the champagne, golden liquid streaming perfectly into the crystal flute. Her hands were steady. She'd done this 1,000 times, could do it in her sleep. Then one of Caldwell's friends, a red-faced man in his late 20s who'd been drinking since the reception started, slammed his hand on the table. Bro, you have to see this. He shoved his phone toward the group. Some video, some joke, something that made them all howl with laughter. The impact jolted through the table, traveled up the legs, shook the glasses. Amara's tray wobbled. The champagne bottle tipped. Time slowed to a crawl. She watched the bottle slip from her grip, watched the golden liquid arc through the air in a perfect parabola, watched it splash across Caldwell Ashford's lap, soaking his charcoal suit, spreading across the pristine white tablecloth, dripping onto $40,000 fabric. The world stopped. Every conversation in the ballroom died. The orchestra trailed off mid-note. 200 heads turned in perfect synchronization. Amara's training kicked in immediately, hands moving on instinct, grabbing napkins, already formulating her apology. "I'm so sorry, sir. Please let me help. I'll get the manager immediately. I'll pay for the cleaning." Caldwell Ashford shot to his feet. His chair screeched against the marble floor. The sound cut through the silence like a scream. His face twisted into something ugly, red with rage, veins bulging at his temples, every muscle tight with fury. "What the hell did you just do?" His voice boomed across the ballroom, carrying to every corner, every table, every person. Amara felt 200 pairs of eyes lock onto her, felt the weight of their attention, their judgment, their anticipation. This was entertainment, drama, something to talk about over brunch tomorrow. She was the show. "Sir, it was an accident. The table was bumped. I can pay for the dry cleaning. I'll work extra shifts. You'll pay for the cleaning." Caldwell's voice climbed higher, performing now, playing to his audience. "This suit is worth $40,000, you stupid girl. 40,000. That's probably more than you make in a year." His friends were already pulling out their phones, angles being calculated, hashtags being composed, her humiliation becoming content in real time. "Sir, please. I said I'm sorry. I'll do whatever you need." "You'll do more than that." Caldwell snapped his fingers at a passing waiter. The sound sharp and commanding, like calling a dog. "Get me scissors. Now." The temperature in the room dropped. Amar's blood turned to ice. "What? Scissors?" Caldwell repeated, louder this time, making sure everyone could hear. "This little accident needs to understand what happens when she disrespects her betters." The waiter froze, face pale, looking between Caldwell and Amara like he was hoping someone would intervene. Nobody did. One of Caldwell's friends, the same one who'd slammed the table in the first place, produced a pair of silver scissors from his jacket pocket, handed them over with a grin like this was all part of some game, like human dignity was sport. "No." Amara took a step back. "Please don't do this." Caldwell grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron, bruising, his fingers digging in hard enough to leave marks. "Should have thought about that before you ruined my evening." He yanked her forward, his other hand tangling in her braids, the hair her grandmother used to comb on Sunday mornings, the hair that was part of her identity, part of her history, part of who she was. "Sir, please." Caldwell forced her to her knees. The marble floor was cold and hard. Amara looked out at the crowd, at 200 faces watching, waiting, nobody moving, nobody speaking, just the soft click of phone cameras, the flash of recording lights. They were documenting this, preserving it, sharing it. She was alone. The first cut came without warning. Caldwell grabbed a fistful of her braids and hacked through them, the scissors slicing through hair she'd been growing for years. The strands fell around her like black rain, scattering across the white marble floor. Amara couldn't stop the sob that tore from her throat, couldn't stop the tears, couldn't stop the sound of her own breaking. Each cut felt like a piece of her soul being ripped away. Caldwell laughed. His friends laughed. Someone in the crowd, some faceless person in designer clothes, actually applauded. He wasn't careful, wasn't trying to be. He carved through her hair in jagged chunks, leaving uneven patches, making her look destroyed, making her look like what he thought she was. Nothing. There, Caldwell released her with a shove that sent her sprawling across the marble. "Now we're even. Your dignity for my suit. Fair trade, don't you think?" Amara's hands flew to her head, feeling the destruction, the stubble, the absence of everything she'd been. Tears streamed down her face, hot and shameful and impossible to stop. Around her, phones captured every angle, every moment, her worst experience becoming viral content. Then the doors opened. The sound echoed through the ballroom like a gunshot. The massive oak doors at the main entrance swung wide. A gust of cold air rushed in from the street, and with it came a presence that made every person in the room instinctively step back. Dante Cross walked inside. He wore a black suit that fit like it had been built around his body, dark tattoos visible at his collar and wrists, his jaw set like carved stone. his posture rigid with control that was clearly costing him. But it was his eyes that changed the atmosphere. Not just gray, not just cold, empty. The kind of emptiness that came from seeing death and dealing it in equal measure. The kind that made survival instinct scream warnings into the primitive part of the brain. He moved forward, each footstep echoing on the marble, the crowd parting like he was Moses and they were the Red Sea. Nobody thinking, just moving, getting out of the path of something dangerous. His gaze swept the room, taking in the scene. The 200 frozen spectators, the phone still recording, the man standing over a woman on her knees. Then he found Amara, on the floor, tears streaming down her face, her beautiful braids scattered around her like fallen soldiers, her head butchered into jagged patches of stubble, and standing above her with scissors in hand was a smug young man in a champagne-stained suit. For 3 seconds, nobody breathed. Then Dante crossed the remaining distance in 5 long strides. He didn't speak, didn't acknowledge anyone else in the room, simply removed his jacket with careful, deliberate movements, draped it over Amara's trembling shoulders, covering her, shielding her, claiming her. "Stand up, amore mio." His voice was soft, almost gentle, but it carried through the silent ballroom like a blade drawn from a sheath. Amara rose on shaking legs. Dante guided her behind him, positioning his body between her and Caldwell like a wall built from flesh and barely restrained violence. Then he turned to face the man who had touched his wife. Caldwell's smirk faltered. Something flickered behind his eyes. Not fear, not yet, but the first whisper of it, the recognition that he'd miscalculated something fundamental. "Look, man," Caldwell held up his hands, still gripping the scissors. "I don't know who you think you are, but this waitress ruined my property. Put the scissors down." Dante's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. The command carried the weight of absolute authority. Caldwell hesitated. His friends had gone silent. The phones had stopped recording. Everyone frozen in place. "I said," Dante stepped closer, his gaze locked onto Caldwell like a targeting system. "Put them down, before I take your hand with them." The scissors clattered to the floor. Caldwell forced a laugh, trying to reclaim some dignity, some authority. He was an Ashford. 4th-generation wealth, Princeton education. He didn't bow to thugs with tattoos. "Listen, I don't know what gang you crawled out of, but this is a private event." His voice gained confidence, feeding on his own arrogance. "This waitress embarrassed me in front of my peers. She needed to learn. She's not a waitress." The words cut through the air. Quiet, final, absolute. Caldwell blinked. "What?" Dante reached back without looking, found Amara's hand, pulled off the black glove she wore. The 5-carat diamond caught the chandelier light and exploded into a constellation of rainbows. 200 people sucked in breath simultaneously. "She's my wife." The silence that followed was total, complete, the kind of silence that precedes earthquakes. Caldwell's face drained of color. His friends stumbled backward. Somewhere in the crowd, someone dropped a glass. The sound of crystal shattering was deafening. "And this event," Dante continued, his tone never changing, still soft, still terrifying. "I funded it. Every dollar, every champagne bottle you've been drinking, the ice sculpture, the orchestra, the building you're standing in. I own it all." Caldwell's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. Dante stepped closer, close enough that only Caldwell could hear his next words, though everyone in the room saw the way the billionaire's son flinched. "You put your hands on what's mine. You cut her hair for entertainment. You made her kneel while people filmed her suffering." Dante's voice dropped to a whisper that somehow felt louder than screaming. "So now I'm going to take everything from you. Your money, your name, your freedom. Every single thing you think makes you untouchable. I'm going to strip it away piece by piece until you have nothing left except the memory of this moment." Caldwell took a step back, nearly tripped over his own feet. "You can't. Do you know who my father is?" "Thaddeus Ashford, Ashford Maritime Empire. Net worth $4.2 billion. 4 offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. A mistress in Geneva he thinks nobody knows about. A federal investigation from 2019 he believes he buried deep enough." Dante smiled. It was the most terrifying thing anyone in that ballroom had ever seen. "I know exactly who your father is. By tomorrow morning, so will everyone else." He turned away from Caldwell like the man had ceased to exist, cupped Amara's tear-stained face in his hands with impossible gentleness. "Let's go home, amore mio. I have work to do." They walked out together, Dante's jacket around Amara's shoulders, his arm around her waist, her head held high despite everything. Behind them, 200 people stood in stunned silence, still holding their phones, still watching, still trying to process what they just witnessed. The oak doors closed with a sound like a coffin being sealed. Sire. Caldwell Ashford stood in the center of the ballroom, surrounded by friends who were already calculating their distance from him, already deciding they'd never really been that close. His phone buzzed, a text from his father. My office, 7 a.m. Don't speak to anyone. Caldwell looked down at his hands, still trembling, still holding the memory of scissors cutting through hair, through dignity, through the illusion that wealth made him invincible. He'd just declared war on Dante Cross. He didn't know he'd already lost. Outside Manhattan glittered, indifferent, eternal, waiting. The game had changed, and Caldwell Ashford had no idea how badly he'd miscalculated until it was far too late. The Unraveling and Justice Delivered Parts 2 and 3 of 3 revised. Part 2, The Unraveling Brum. Dante Cross didn't sleep that night. He sat in his penthouse office overlooking Manhattan. The city sprawled beneath him, millions of lights, millions of lives, millions of connections he could trace and manipulate with the right amount of pressure. His phone pressed to his ear, voice never rising above a murmur, issuing commands in the language of power that moved through shadows. Amara stood in the doorway, wrapped in his robe. Her hand kept drifting to her head, to the destroyed hair, each touch a reminder of what Caldwell Ashford had taken, what he'd tried to break. But Amara Beaumont didn't break easily. Maury, Dante covered the phone. You should rest. You've been through. Don't. Her voice was steady, stronger than it had been in the car. Don't treat me like I'm fragile. I'm not fragile. I'm furious. That's different. Dante studied her face. The tears had dried. The trembling had stopped. What remained was something harder, colder, more dangerous than grief. What do you need from me? Let me help. Amara stepped into the office. I'm not going to sit in the bedroom while you handle this. I'm not just a victim in this story, Dante. I heard something tonight, before the champagne spilled. His eyes sharpened. What did you hear? Caldwell was on his phone talking to someone. He said $52 million transferred to a Cayman account. Said something about a charity fund. Then he laughed and said, who cares about those kids anyway? She moved closer. I spent 4 years detecting financial fraud at Goldman Sachs. That's not just suspicious. That's a confession. Understanding dawned across Dante's features. You think he's embezzling? I think he's stupid enough to talk about embezzling in public because he's never faced real accountability in his life. Amara's jaw set. You can destroy him with power, but I can prove he's a criminal. And that's different. That's not revenge. That's justice. Dante set down his phone, gave her his complete attention. You want to investigate him. I want to make sure when he falls, it's because of what he did. Not just because you're powerful enough to crush him. She met his gaze directly. If you use your connections to ruin him, he becomes your victim. People will sympathize. Rich kid bullied by scary mobster. But if we prove he stole from children, if we prove he's exactly as rotten inside as he showed himself to be, tonight, then what happens to him isn't revenge. It's earned. This isn't your responsibility, Amara. Yes, it is. I spent 26 months being powerless, watching my career evaporate because I told the truth and nobody cared. I'm not powerless anymore, and I'm not going to stand aside while someone else fights my battles. Dante stood, crossed to where she stood, cupped her face with both hands. If we do this your way, it takes time, investigation, evidence gathering, building an airtight case. He could hurt more people while we work. Then we do both. Amara's voice didn't waver. You squeeze him with your power, cut off his money, expose his past, make him panic, and I'll find proof of his crimes. We come at him from every direction until there's nowhere left to run. A slow smile spread across Dante's face, the kind that had made empires crumble. Have I mentioned that you terrify me? Not nearly enough. He kissed her forehead, gentle despite the violence coiled in every muscle. Then let's go to war. Midnight. First strike. Dante made the call on speaker. Amara needed to hear this, needed to understand the machinery he was setting in motion. Victor, his voice was conversational, almost friendly. I need a favor. The man on the other end spoke with a thick European accent, Swiss, maybe German. Dante Cross asking for favors. This must be serious. Someone hurt my wife tonight, in public. I want his personal accounts frozen. All of them. Name Caldwell Ashford. Ashford Maritime Air. A pause. The sound of typing. Then a low whistle. That's a $6.3 million freeze. His father will notice immediately. I'm counting on it. Can you have it done in 30 minutes? For you, consider it done. Should I leave a trail? No, make it look like routine suspicious activity flagging. Red tape that takes weeks to untangle. I want him panicking, calling lawyers, making mistakes. Understood. The money stops flowing at 12:30 a.m. Dante ended the call. Made another immediately. Then another. A banker in Zurich, a lawyer in London, a journalist in Washington who owed him 3 life debts. Amara listened to each conversation, watched the dominoes being positioned, the precision of it, the cold calculation behind every word. This was the man the world feared, the one who moved through power structures like smoke, who owned people without them realizing they'd been purchased. But when he looked at her between calls, his eyes softened, became human again. Tell me if this is too much, he said quietly. If you need me to slow down, don't slow down, bury him. 2 a.m., second strike. The videos hit the internet like carpet bombing, not the videos from tonight. Those had been purchased. Every phone at the gala. Dante's people had offered $5,000 per device for immediate deletion and device surrender. Nobody had refused. The footage from the Sterling Crown Yacht Club was gone, erased from existence. But other videos remained, older ones, buried beneath settlements and non-disclosure agreements and family money. Silas worked from a corner of the office, a wiry man in his 40s who could crack any system given enough time and motivation. Screens reflected in his glasses as his fingers flew across keyboards. Got 4 separate incidents documented, Silas said without looking up. Nightclub security footage from 2022 shows Caldwell Ashford shoving a woman against a wall. You can see her crying, see the bouncer intervening. What happened to her, Amara asked. Settlement, $50,000. NDA signed 2 weeks later. Silas pulled up another file. Then we have testimony from 3 former personal assistants, all women, all describing verbal abuse threats, hostile work environment, all signed NDAs, all took money to stay quiet. How much? $75,000, $80,000, $120,000, standard rich kid cleanup protocol. Silas looked at Dante. You want these public everything, all of it, simultaneous release across every platform that matters. The settlements have legal protection. I don't care, let the Ashford lawyers come after us. By the time they file motions, the damage is permanent. Dante leaned forward. People need to understand what kind of man cuts a woman's hair for entertainment. They need to see the pattern. Silas worked in silence for 90 seconds, then sat back. Done. Posted to 16 gossip sites, 4 major news aggregators, 7 social media platforms. Gave exclusive tips to 3 journalists who specialize in exposing the wealthy and connected. Should trend by sunrise. Good. Amara watched the first posts go live. Watched engagement numbers climb. Comments flooding in. The story spreading like wildfire through dry grass. Billionaire heir's dark history exposed. Multiple women accuse Caldwell Ashford of abuse. Pattern of violence hidden behind family money. The court of public opinion moved faster than any legal system. By dawn, Caldwell Ashford would be infamous. 6:30 a.m., Ashford Maritime Tower. Caldwell hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. His phone had been exploding since 2 a.m. Hundreds of notifications, missed calls from numbers he didn't recognize, text messages from friends telling him to check the news. He'd scrolled through it all with growing horror, watching his life become entertainment, watching strangers dissect his worst moments, watching the carefully constructed image of Caldwell Ashford, charming hair-eligible, bachelor future captain of industry, crumble into something monstrous. Then his bank called at 6 a.m. Mr. Ashford, we're showing unusual activity flags on your accounts. All transactions are currently frozen pending investigation. What why am I cannot discuss specifics over the phone, but I strongly recommend contacting your legal team immediately. This could take several weeks to resolve through proper channels. $6.3 million, gone. Locked behind bureaucratic red tape he couldn't cut through with charm or connections. Caldwell knew exactly who was responsible. The voicemail from his father had come at 6:15. 9 words, no context, my office. 7 a.m., don't speak to anyone. Now Caldwell stood outside his father's door, stomach churning, hands shaking. every instinct screaming that he was about to walk into an execution. He wasn't wrong. Thaddeus Ashford stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, 60 stories above Manhattan, hands clasped behind his back, shoulders rigid, not turning around when Caldwell entered. The silence stretched, heavy, suffocating. "Dad, I can explain." "Explain what?" Thaddeus's voice was permafrost. "Explain why federal investigators are suddenly interested in our Cayman accounts. Explain why our stock dropped 14% in pre-market trading. Explain why the board is demanding an emergency meeting to discuss removing me as chairman." Caldwell's mouth went dry. "This is insane. It was just some server. She spilled wine on my suit." "She's Dante Cross's wife." The name hung in the air like a death sentence. Caldwell felt his knees weaken. "Who's Dante Cross?" Thaddeus finally turned. His eyes were empty of anything resembling fatherly affection. "The man who owns half this city, who has federal judges and senators in his pocket, who could bury our entire empire with 3 phone calls. You assaulted his wife, cut her hair like some medieval savage, in front of 200 witnesses who filmed every second." "I didn't know." "You didn't think." Thaddeus slammed his hand on the desk. The crack echoed like a gunshot. "And now I have to choose between saving this company or saving you." Caldwell stepped forward. "Dad, please. I'm your son. You were my son." Thaddeus pressed a button on his phone. "Security will escort you out. Your trust fund is frozen pending review. Your credit cards are canceled. Your apartment belongs to the company, so you have 48 hours to vacate. Any personal items will be boxed and sent to whatever address you provide." "You can't do this. I'm doing this to survive." Thaddeus sat down, turned his chair to face the window, dismissing him. "You brought a war to my doorstep, Caldwell. Now you fight it alone." 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. Not the usual friendly faces. Professional, cold, stone-faced. They took Caldwell by the arms, escorted him past junior executives who suddenly found their computer screens fascinating, past assistants who became very interested in their phones. The elevator ride down 60 floors felt like descending into hell. When the doors opened to the lobby, 3 photographers were waiting, cameras flashing, questions shouted. "Caldwell, is it true you've assaulted multiple women? Did your father just fire you? How do you respond to allegations of abuse?" Caldwell shoved past them, into the morning sunlight, into a world that no longer recognized him as anything except a monster. His phone buzzed. His mother. He answered desperately. "Mom, I need help. Dad cut me off and I don't have anywhere." "I can't, sweetheart." Her voice was tight, scared. "Your father warned me. Any contact with you cost me the divorce settlement. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I can't lose everything for you." The line went dead. Caldwell stood on Madison Avenue, surrounded by morning commuters who flowed past like he didn't exist. His suit still smelled like champagne. His hands still remembered the feel of scissors cutting through hair, through dignity, through the last moment before his life imploded. Days 2 through 7, parallel investigations. While Caldwell Ashford's world burned, Amara went to work. She'd called the Sterling Crown, told them she needed personal leave. They'd agreed immediately, probably relieved not to have the server from last night's incident working their floor. Instead, she worked from Dante's penthouse. 3 monitors arranged in a semicircle. Her old Goldman Sachs credentials technically deactivated, but Silas had reactivated them within an hour. Access to financial databases most people didn't know existed. She started with public records, built the foundation slowly, methodically. Ashford Maritime was publicly traded, which meant certain disclosures were mandatory. Annual reports, quarterly earnings, major transactions above specific thresholds. The Children's Future Fund was private, but it accepted donations from public companies, which created paper trails. Amara cross-referenced 3 years of data, looking for patterns, discrepancies, the kind of red flags she'd been trained to spot at Goldman Sachs. Finding one. Day 2, the Children's Future Fund reported receiving $180 million in donations over 36 months. $60 million per year. Impressive. Generous. The kind of number that generated positive press coverage. But disbursements told a different story. The fund claimed to spend $48 million annually on programs, educational initiatives, healthcare access, housing support for at-risk youth. 48 million times 3 years equaled 144 million. 180 minus 144 left $36 million unaccounted for. That was problem 1. Problem 2 was subtler. The fund listed expenses for legal consultation and financial advisory services. Standard operating costs for any large charity. Except the amounts were absurd. $200,000 per quarter paid to a firm called Apex Advisory Limited. No website, no physical business address, no employee roster available through any database. $800,000 per year. Times 3 years, $2.4 million to a company that appeared to exist only on paper. Amara flagged it, moved deeper. Finding 2, day 4. Silas had cracked Caldwell's personal email. 6 months of correspondence handed over on an encrypted drive. Most of it was mundane. Party invitations, luxury purchase confirmations, messages to girlfriends and drinking buddies. But buried in a folder labeled tax documents, the kind of folder most people never opened, were emails to Nathan Morrison, Chief Financial Officer of Ashford Maritime. One email made Amara's pulse spike. Subject Q, to transfer from Caldwell Ashford to Nathan Morrison. Date April 15th. Nathan transfer complete. $8.9 million to Apex as discussed. Split remains 65-35. Father asking questions about quarterly charity disbursement. Keep him satisfied with standard reports. He doesn't look at details anyway. See, Amara read it 3 times, then called Dante. I found it. Proof of embezzlement. Email explicitly discussing hiding money from Thaddeus. Splitting funds between Caldwell and the CFO. Can you trace where the money went? Working on it. But Dante, this isn't just Caldwell being reckless. This is systematic fraud. And if the CFO is involved, it's conspiracy. Federal charges. Then we need more than one email. We need bank records, transaction logs, enough evidence to make it bulletproof. I know. Give me 3 more days. She got back to work. Day 5, pattern interrupt. Caldwell showed up at the penthouse. Security called from the lobby. Sir, there's a Caldwell Ashford here. Says he needs to speak with the Mrs. Cross. Should we remove him? Dante looked at Amara. Your call. She thought about it. About the man who'd cut her hair, made her kneel, humiliated her for entertainment. Part of her wanted him thrown out. Wanted him to understand what it felt like to be dismissed. To not matter. But another part, the analyst part, saw opportunity. Let him come up, but you stay in the room with me. Always, sir. 5 minutes later, Caldwell Ashford stood in their living room. He'd lost weight, maybe 15 pounds in 5 days. His designer stubble had grown into an unkempt beard. His clothes, the only ones he'd managed to grab before being locked out of his apartment, were wrinkled and stained. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He looked broken. Please, his voice cracked. Please, I just need 5 minutes. Amara stood behind the kitchen island, Dante beside Barn, positioned like a bodyguard, like a weapon on a hair trigger. Talk, Amara said, not sitting, not offering comfort or courtesy, making him stand like a supplicant, begging for mercy. I'm sorry. Caldwell's eyes were bloodshot. I'm so sorry for what I did. I was drunk and stupid, and I never should have touched you. Please just talk to your husband. Tell him I've learned my lesson. Tell him I'll do anything to make this stop. You're not sorry for what you did. Amar's voice was steady, clinical, the way she used to deliver bad news to executives who didn't want to hear it. You're sorry it had consequences. No, You called me you people. You shaved my head while a room full of people watched and laughed. You treated me like I wasn't human, like I was property you could damage for your amusement. She leaned forward slightly. You did all that because you thought you could, because nothing bad has ever happened to you, and now you want mercy. I just want this to stop. Your husband destroyed my life in less than a week. I have nothing left. No money, no home, no family. Good. The word dropped like a stone into still water. Caldwell stared at her. What? You heard me? Good. Maybe now you understand what it feels like. To have everything taken. To be dismissed by people with power. To be nothing in the eyes of the world. Amara straightened. I spent 26 months living that reality because I told the truth about fraud. You're going to spend much longer living it because you're cruel and you hurt people for fun. Please, a shadow fell over Caldwell. He turned. Dante Cross stood 3 feet away, expression empty, eyes holding nothing but cold calculation. You were told to stay away from my wife. I just wanted to apologize. You wanted to save yourself. Dante stepped closer. Caldwell stumbled backward. There is no apology that matters. There is no mercy. There is only what comes next. He nodded to the security guards who'd followed Caldwell up. Make sure he understands the restraining order. If he comes within 500 feet of my wife again, we involve the police. Caldwell's face drained of remaining color. What restraining order? What are you? But the guards were already escorting him toward the elevator, already removing him from their lives. The doors closed. Amara exhaled slowly. Hadn't realized she'd been holding her breath. You okay? Dante asked. Yeah, actually yes, I needed that. Needed to see him powerless. Needed to tell him the truth without breaking down. She turned to Dante. And I'm ready to finish this. Let's bring him down properly. Days 8 through 14. The final evidence. Amara worked 18-hour days, fueled by coffee and righteous anger and the memory of scissors cutting through her hair. Silas provided technical support, cracking firewalls, accessing databases that were supposed to be secure, leaving no digital fingerprints. Elijah Winters, Dante's attorney, a man in his 50s with kind eyes and a reputation for never losing, provided legal guidance, made sure everything they found would be admissible in court. Finding 3, Day 9. Transaction records from Apex Advisory Limited, 27 separate wire transfers over 3 years, all originating from the Children's Future Fund, all deposited into a Cayman Islands account, total $52.8 million. Finding 4, Day 11. Corporate registration documents for Apex Advisory Limited, filed in the Cayman Islands, ownership structure buried beneath 3 layers of shell companies. But Silas had traced it, followed the breadcrumbs. Apex Advisory Limited was 97% owned by Caldwell Ashford. Finding 5, Day 13. Bank statements from the Cayman account. Withdrawals detailed and dated. $4.1 million, purchase of Hampton's estate through LLC. $2.3 million, 5 luxury vehicles over 18 months. $1.6 million jewelry art designer goods. All purchased with money stolen from a charity meant to help children. Amara built the case methodically. 847 pages of documentation. Cross-referenced, time-stamped, ironclad. Day 14, final meeting. Elijah Winters sat across from Amara in Dante's office. Recording device on, notepad open. Walk me through what you have, he said. Amara pulled up her findings, displayed them across 3 monitors. The Children's Future Fund received $180 million in donations over 3 years, only dispersed $124 million. That's $56 million unaccounted for. Could be administrative kisal, which is why I went deeper. 27 transfers to Apex Advisory Limited over 36 months. 8.9 million total. Apex is registered in Cayman Islands. 97% owned by Caldwell Ashford. I have the corporate filings. Elijah's eyebrows rose. You can prove ownership. Corporate documents obtained through, she glanced at Dante, through sources. But yes, Apex is Caldwell's shell company, and the Cayman account has $52.8 million in it. What else? Email correspondence between Caldwell and Nathan Morrison, CFO of Ashford Maritime. Explicit discussion of splitting embezzled funds, 65% to Caldwell, 30% to Morrison, 5% described as contingency. I'll need those emails. Silas sent everything to your secure server 2 hours ago. And the spending, where did $52 million go? Amara pulled up transaction records. $4.1 million on a Hampton's estate, $2.3 million on luxury vehicles, $1.6 million on jewelry and art, all purchased with funds from Apex, which means funds stolen from children's charity. Elijah reviewed the documents in silence, checking her work, looking for holes. There weren't any. This is airtight, he finally said. With this evidence, the DA can prosecute for embezzlement, wire fraud, conspiracy. We're looking at 12 to 20 years federal time if convicted. How fast can you move? Dante asked from the window. I can have this to the district attorney by end of business today. But federal prosecution takes time. Grand jury indictment process arrest warrant. We're looking at 3 to 4 weeks minimum. Too slow. Dante, this is federal court. There are procedures. He hurt my wife. Every day he walks free is unacceptable. Dante's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I want him arrested this week. That's not realistic. Make it realistic. I don't care what strings you pull or who you call. This evidence is gift-wrapped. The DA wants a high-profile win. Give it to him, but make it fast. Elijah looked at Amara. She nodded. Do it, she said. 52 million stolen from children. That's not ambiguous. That's not technical. That's theft, and thieves belong in prison. Elijah gathered his files. I'll make calls. If I can get emergency proceedings based on flight risk and ongoing fraud, arrest might happen in 72 hours. Good. Dante watched him leave. then turned to Amara. You did it. You proved he's a criminal. We did it. I couldn't have gotten this information without Silas, without your connections. But you knew what to look for. You built the case, he crossed to her. When this is over, when he's in prison, what do you want? Amara was quiet. She'd been so focused on bringing Caldwell down that she hadn't thought beyond it. I want to make sure this doesn't happen again. That people like him can't hide behind family money and handyman NDAs. She met his eyes. I want to help whistleblowers, people who tell the truth and get destroyed for it. I want to be what I needed 26 months ago. Dante smiled, the real smile, the one reserved only for her. Then that's what you'll build. Whatever you need, whatever resources, you have them. I don't want charity, Dante. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering weapons. What you do with them is entirely your choice. Amara kissed him, soft, grateful, then pulled back. Okay, but first we finish this. Make sure Caldwell Ashford never hurts anyone again. Oh, I guarantee that. Tara. 3 days later, the arrest, FBI agents, federal marshals, news cameras capturing every moment. Caldwell Ashford was arrested at a cheap hotel in Queens, handcuffed, rights read, perp walk for the cameras. The charges scrolled across every news station. Embezzlement, $52.8 million. Wire fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, assault, and battery with hate crime enhancement, bail set at $5 million. Thaddeus Ashford refused to post it. I don't have a son anymore, he told reporters. Caldwell spent his first night in federal custody on a metal cot, surrounded by men who'd committed far lesser crimes for far better reasons. But the story wasn't over. Amara stood at the penthouse window, hair cut short in a new style she was learning to love. Ring on her finger no longer hidden. 3 weeks until trial, and Dante said behind her, Elijah says the evidence is so strong they're pushing for expedited proceedings. Good, Amara turned to him, but I want to be there. When he's sentenced, I want to look him in the eye. Then you will be. She nodded, looked back at the city. Justice wasn't revenge. Justice was truth finally being heard. And the trial was just beginning. In Part 2, Part 3, Justice Delivered, 3 weeks later. Federal Courthouse, Manhattan. The courtroom was packed. 200 spectators, 50 journalists, cameras forbidden but notebooks ready to capture every word. The trial had captivated the city for weeks. Every detail splashed across headlines. Every witness testimony dissected on cable news. Caldwell Ashford sat at the defense table, a hollow shell of the man who'd commanded rooms with arrogance. His borrowed suit hung loose. His face was gaunt, eyes empty of fight. The parade of witnesses had destroyed him. Former victims who finally found courage. Security footage that couldn't be disputed. The video from the yacht club that Dante had allowed to surface at precisely the right moment, edited to show only the assault protecting Amara's privacy but proving Caldwell's cruelty. Financial experts who'd walked the jury through $52.8 million in theft, transaction by transaction, wire transfer by wire transfer. The evidence was overwhelming. 3 days ago, the jury had begun deliberations. They'd returned after 3 hours. Now everyone waited for the verdict. Amara sat in the gallery, Dante beside her, his hand covering hers, steady, grounding. She'd cut her hair into a short, elegant style. Pixie cut that framed her face beautifully. She looked different, stronger. The broken woman from the yacht club was gone, replaced by someone who'd turned pain into purpose. The judge entered. Everyone stood. Has the jury reached a verdict? The foreman stood, an older black woman, a teacher Amara had learned during jury selection. We have your honor. On the count of embezzlement, how do you find guilty? On the count of wire fraud, guilty. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. On the count of assault and battery with hate crime enhancement, guilty. The word echoed through the courtroom. Final, irrevocable. Caldwell didn't react, just stared at the table, shoulders slumped, already defeated. The judge reviewed the verdict, then looked at Caldwell. Mr. Ashford, your actions displayed profound contempt for human dignity. You used wealth and status as weapons against those you deemed beneath you. You stole from children who needed help to fund a lifestyle of excess. And when confronted with your crimes, you showed no remorse. Only entitlement. The judge paused, let the words sink in. This court sentences you to 12 years in federal prison, followed by 5 years probation. You will make full restitution of $52.8 million to the Children's Future Fund, plus an additional $27 million in fines and penalties to Mays. You will complete mandatory psychological counseling, and you will be registered as having committed a hate crime which will follow you for the rest of your life. 12 years, the number hung in the air. Caldwell's attorney caught him as his legs buckled. In the gallery, Amara felt no joy, no triumph, just a quiet sense of closure, like a wound finally allowed to heal properly. After the sentencing, Thaddeus Ashford sat in the back row. He'd attended every day of the trial, never speaking, never approaching his son. As people filed out, a journalist approached him. "Mr. Ashford, do you have any comment on your son's conviction?" Thaddeus stood, buttoned his suit jacket, looked directly at the camera. "I have no son. The boy I raised is gone. What remains is a criminal who will serve his time and hopefully find redemption." He paused. "Ashford Maritime has made full restitution to the Children's Future Fund and implemented new oversight procedures. We will rebuild our reputation through action, not words." He walked out without looking back. Amara and Dante left through a side exit, avoiding the cameras, the shouted questions. In the car, Amara was quiet. "You okay?" Dante asked. "Yeah, I am." She looked at him. "It's over. Really over. How does it feel?" "Like I can breathe again." She touched her short hair. "Like maybe something good can come from this." "It already has. You." 18 months later. The courtroom had been just the beginning. Amara had used the settlement money Dante had ensured she received compensation for the assault to start the Beaumont Initiative, a nonprofit dedicated to supporting whistleblowers, people who told the truth and got destroyed for it, people who needed legal help, financial support, and someone who understood. The office was small. Brooklyn, 5 employees, but in 18 months they'd helped 89 people. Former employees who'd reported fraud and been blacklisted, scientists who'd spoken up about falsified data, teachers who'd exposed corruption in school systems, people like her, people who'd chosen integrity over safety. Amara worked from a small office, walls covered with thank you letters, photos of people they'd helped, reminders of why this mattered. Her phone rang. Dante. "Hey, Amore, busy?" "Always. What's up?" "I was thinking we could do dinner tonight. Celebrate." "Celebrate what?" "The Beaumont Initiative just hit 100 people helped. I've been tracking your numbers." Amara smiled. "You keep spreadsheets on my nonprofit. I keep spreadsheets on everything that matters to me. And you matter most." "Dinner sounds perfect." Jim. That evening, penthouse balcony, Manhattan glittered beneath them. The city that had broken her and rebuilt her in equal measure. Dante stood behind Amara, arms wrapped around her waist, chin resting on top of her head. "You ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Going after Caldwell that way instead of just letting me handle it?" "No, never." She turned in his arms, looked up at him. "If you just destroyed him with power, he'd be your victim. People would sympathize. But we proved he destroyed himself, and that made all the difference. You made all the difference. We made it together." She touched his face. "Thank you for being the monster when I needed one. And thank you for letting me be strong when I was ready." "Always amore mio, always." They stood there as the sun set, as the city transformed from gold to indigo to black studded with lights. Below them, somewhere in a federal prison, Caldwell Ashford was learning what accountability meant. Nathan Morrison, the CFO who'd helped him, had been sentenced to 8 years. Thaddeus Ashford had resigned as CEO of Ashford Maritime. The company had survived, but barely. Restructured, reformed, under new leadership. And Amara Beaumont had built something that mattered. 2 years after the trial, federal prison, visitor's room. Amara hadn't planned to visit, but she'd received a letter, handwritten, 6 pages, from Caldwell, not asking for forgiveness, not making excuses, just acknowledging what he'd done, who he'd hurt, why it was wrong. The letter ended with a question. "Would you be willing to meet, not for me, for the man I'm trying to become? I need to apologize to your face, to hear you tell me what you need to hear. I understand if the answer is no. I understand I have no right to ask, but I'm asking anyway." Caldwell Dante had left it up to her. "Your choice, Amoru, whatever you need." So here she was. The visitor's room was gray concrete and fluorescent lights. Caldwell sat across from her, prison jumpsuit, thinner, older somehow, eyes that had seen suffering and might finally understand it. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either." Amara folded her hands on the table. "Why did you write to me?" Because I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the desperate begging I did when I was trying to save myself. He took a breath. I'm sorry for what I did to you, for cutting your hair, for humiliating you, for treating you like you weren't human. There's no excuse, no justification. I was cruel because I could be, because I'd never learned that other people's pain matters. And now I'm learning, slowly. I have a cellmate named Marcus. He's here because he stole food to feed his daughter. Got caught, got 3 years. Caldwell's voice was steady. He asked why I was here. I told him. And he looked at me and said, you stole from children to buy cars, and I stole bread to feed mine. Which of us is the real criminal? Amara was quiet, listening. I've been helping Marcus write letters to his daughter. She's 7, smart, wants to be a doctor. Caldwell's eyes met hers. It's the first time in my life I've done something for someone else without wanting something back. And it feels different. Different how? Like maybe I'm not just the person I was. Like maybe I can become someone better. He paused. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know I understand now. What I took from you. What I did. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Amara studied his face, looking for manipulation, for performance, for the man who'd made her kneel while cameras recorded. She didn't see him. She saw someone broken and trying to rebuild. I forgive you, she said finally. Caldwell's eyes widened. What? I forgive you, not because you've earned it, not because your apology was perfect, but because I don't want to carry anger anymore. She leaned forward. Forgiveness doesn't mean I forget. It doesn't mean what you did was okay. It means I'm choosing to let go of the weight. For me, not for you. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just keep trying to be better. Help Marcus write letters to his daughter. Help other people in here. Become someone who adds value instead of just taking. She stood. That's the best apology you could give. Not words. Changed behavior. Caldwell stood too. I will. I promise. Amara nodded, turned to leave. At the door she paused, looked back. Caldwell. Yes. I hope you find redemption. I really do. Everyone deserves a second chance to become who they should have been. Then she walked out. Return. 6 months later. The Beaumont Initiative Gala. The Plaza Hotel. Same venue where Amara had planned to confront Caldwell before his arrest. Now it hosted something different. A fundraiser for the Beaumont Initiative. 300 guests. Donors, supporters, people who believed in second chances and speaking truth. Amara stood at the podium. Short hair styled elegantly, confidence radiating from every gesture. 2.5 years ago, I lost everything because I told the truth about fraud. I was blacklisted, powerless, working as a server to survive. She paused. Let them absorb it. Then something worse happened. I was assaulted, humiliated, had my dignity stripped away in front of 200 people. The room was silent. But here's what I learned. Dignity isn't something someone can take from you. It's something you choose to keep. And the strongest thing you can do after being knocked down is stand up and build something better. She gestured to the screens behind her. Photos of people they'd helped. Stories of whistleblowers who'd survived. The Beaumont Initiative has helped 147 people in 2 years. Former employees who reported fraud, scientists who exposed falsified data, teachers who spoke up about corruption, people who chose integrity over safety. Applause rippled through the room. We're expanding to 12 states next year, opening regional offices, creating a legal defense fund, building a network so no one has to stand alone when they tell the truth. More applause, louder. But none of this would exist without the people who believed in me when I had nothing. My husband Dante, who gave me the space to be strong, my team, who works tirelessly, and every single person who shared their story with us. She looked out at the crowd, saw Dante in the front row, saw Elijah, saw Silas, saw the 89 people they'd helped, many of whom had come tonight. They say revenge is sweet, but justice heals. Justice builds. Justice makes sure the next person doesn't suffer alone. The room erupted in applause. Amara stepped down. Dante met her at the bottom of the stage. You were incredible, he said. We were incredible. None of this happens without you. I just gave you tools. You built the empire. She smiled, kissed him softly. Then let's keep building. Final scene. Penthouse. Late night. Amara stood at the window, Manhattan stretched infinite below, the city that had tested her and tempered her. Dante joined her, 2 glasses of wine. They stood in comfortable silence. "Do you ever think about that night?" he asked. "The yacht club." "Sometimes, but not the way you'd think." She sipped her wine. "I don't think about the pain. I think about what came after. How it led to this, to helping people, to finding purpose, and you turned trauma into triumph." "No, I turned trauma into action. Triumph is too simple, too final." She looked at him. "I'm still working on it, still healing, still figuring out who I am after everything." "And who are you?" Amara smiled. "I'm someone who knows that speaking truth costs everything, and I'm someone willing to pay that price, because some things matter more than comfort." Dante pulled her close. "I love you, amore mio. I love you too, my monster, my partner, my home." They stood there as the city glittered. As somewhere in a federal prison, Caldwell Ashford wrote another letter to Marcus's daughter trying to become better. As the Beaumont Initiative prepared to help person number 148, as Justice Real Justice continued its slow, deliberate work. Epilogue. 5 years later, the Beaumont Initiative had expanded to 23 states, helped over 400 people, changed laws, reformed systems. Amara testified before Congress about whistleblower protections, wrote a book about corporate fraud and personal resilience, became a voice for those who'd been silenced. Goldman Sachs settled with her for an undisclosed amount after the CFO she'd reported was finally prosecuted. She donated every penny to the initiative. Caldwell Ashford was released after serving 8 years with good behavior. He went to work for a nonprofit helping at-risk youth, quietly, without fanfare, trying to earn redemption one day at a time. And Amara Beaumont stood on stages across the country, telling her story, helping others tell theirs. She'd learned the truth. Dignity isn't something you're given, it's something you claim. Justice isn't revenge, it's accountability. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. Her grandmother had been right all those years ago. You're going to be somebody. Amara Beaumont had become exactly that. Not despite what happened to her, but because of what she chose to do about it.